Chapter 4. It takes me a bit longer to finally calm down than I would like to admit, after the ship jumps out from my grasp, but eventually, I remember that I have a recently rescued damsel. While I'm not much of a ladies' man myself, I do have the Volpe's family secret system TM for getting the most out of rescued ladies or guys, or at least that's what my roommate Icefox claimed when he taught me the system. He then went on to claim that half of his ancestors were the result of a successful utilization of the system. Icefox, my roommate at the academy and best friend, was descended from one of the original 12-star knights, and they called their family house Volpe's for some reason. We were both pretty smashed, having smuggled in some really good liquor to our room when he imparted this secret system to me, but since it's the only advice I could come up with, I decided to give it a whirl. Hey, it is considered bad form to try to sue your rescuer for sexual harassment or kick them in the balls, so what's the worst that could happen? The first step in the system: check for injuries, torture, or waifu rings. So I reach out for the part in my mind that will let me wake back up into my meat body. Coming back to my body, I sit up with a grunt, slowly pulling free from the receding foam of my chair and take my first real good look at the chick I had put so much effort into rescuing. She was a half head below my height with long red hair and a nice angular face, or at least the half of it that isn't hidden by her hair. Body type is thin and a little small in the chest, but fit and in good shape either through drugs or working out, and the business suit doesn't look padded or armored, but apart from a few rips and some grime, it looks pretty new, at least to me. The suit also looks pretty standard rather than a custom-fitted one, so not too rich but someone fairly important. Most importantly, no ring on her finger or torque around her neck, also no telltale white mark of a removed ring, so single. So starting up the system, my drunk roommate gave me I go with, "So are you okay, miss? Anything that needs medical attention, Ms. Stoneblood?" I say with a serious look on my face, and a business-like tone. My recently rescued damsel turns from the view screen towards me and grins. "I can't believe you took out all those wings, and so easily even though you're just awakened," she says in a rush. "Hey, don't forget I rescued a beautiful damsel in distress," I add in a teasing tone, then tilting my head as I say, "You were in distress and I didn't mess up your master plan or anything," I add in a concerned voice. "No, thank you, and just call me Jade," she responds with a blinding white smile on the half of her face that isn't covered by her hair. "Now," I say, my voice taking on a fake formal tone, "it is customary for a damsel to kiss her rescuer," then I blink as Jade's face falls and she half turns away. "What?" I say, slightly worried. If this screwed up my chances with the first chick I rescued, I'm going to have words with Icefox about his system. Jade suddenly flips her hair back from her face, revealing a long, jagged, bright blue scar that runs from her cheek across her face over one of her eyes, which is white except for where the blue line crosses it. Two other smaller lines, one above and one below the one that crosses her eye, come together on the side of her nose, forming an arrowhead shape. The only type of scar I had seen like that before was on a blade mechanic, and he said it was from a warp burn that he got when a rift cutter he was working on exploded on him. Jade smiles a tight-lipped smile at my surprised expression and says, "That's what I thought," with a sad smile. Thankfully, the Volpe's family secret system TM covers this twist. I hear my drunk roommates slur. If your lady pulls out a disfiguring or disturbing body part and you don't catch yourself fast enough and decide if you still want her, you divert and distract her and then come back in for the kilsh later. Drawing on this advice, I go with, "Hey, cool scar, how did you get it?" I say as ordinarily as I can muster. Jade turns back and blinks, a little taken aback by my casual acknowledgement of her disfigurement. To reinforce the point, I lean in and glance at her chest. This helps keep me from staring at her scar and shows I'm still interested. I'm not sure about this part of the system, but hey, who am I to question something that worked for generations of House Volpe's players? Jade gives a little laugh, drawing my eyes back up to her face, and she answers in a sad voice, "I got this on the worst day of my life." Jade half turns away and starts, "My mother was a star knight like you. Steel Falcon, she was the best jumper knight in a generation. She could do star-to-star jumps in her blade, Warsong she called it. My dad was a high-level tech manager for Stone Blood Corp. He was also the great-grandson of the head of Stone Blood Mining, but in his spare time he was a mana technician. My dad told me once that he deliberately wooed my mother because he wanted to have her test his tech since he wasn't awakened. He said that he won her heart by providing upgrades to Warsong." Jade sniffles a little. "I can still remember that morning. I had just started helping Dad in his private lab with his gadgets, and then he went with my mother on a random check of an asteroid mining colony. Dad had a new blade-sized rift blade that he wanted Mom to try out. Inside, I'm thinking of a giant rift cutter that my Starblade could wield, I'm gonna woo the pants off this chick if there's even a small chance I could get my hands on one of those. So what happened? I say, leaning forward eagerly. I'm not sure, Jade replies sadly. They flew up in war song, then Rift jumped away, and that's the last I've heard of them. Dad had left one of his experiments running and it blew up when I tried to shut it down. I lost the use of one eye and my parents all in one day. Concluding her story sadly. Didn't the Star Knights look for them? Your mother's blade should have had a resonance tracer they could have followed, I say questioningly. The official story is that something went wrong with the jump and they were lost to the rift. But later one of my mom's fellowship let slip that the Knights thought that it was the terrorist group the Chaos Legion. She had gotten drunk and was rambling when she came to our house to collect any devices containing sensitive info from my mother's things. Wait, was that who those bad dudes were? I say, remembering the strange insignias on the bad dude's gear. Yes, that's why I was trying to work my way in with one of their cells posing as a disgruntled Stone Blood employee. Jade says, so you weren't kidnapped? I say, wondering why in the Great Star Goat's mighty hairy beard, my mission briefing was almost completely wrong about everything. No, I was grabbed when the main Chaos Legion members came and murdered the cell I was infiltrating. Jade says, shaking her head, continuing, I don't know why they did it, but the guys in my cell weren't terrorists, at least not hardcore ones. Half just wanted freedom from Star Knight Dominion. The other half wanted the Knights to crack down harder on corruption, but in the end all they did was talk and post edgy memes. It was horrible. They just walked into the meeting and opened fire. I ducked under the table to hide from the shooting, then one of the men grabbed me and zapped me with a stunner. When I woke up I was in a cell. They forced me to make a video recording begging my family to leave the planet of the first group, but they were all dead except for one guy, and that guy never really fit in with the other guys. Jade explains. They probably weren't hardcore enough for the higher-ups in the terrorist organization. The Chaos Legion are some pretty nasty characters from what I was told about them. I say, nodding. The reason I hadn't managed to link the guys I fought with the Chaos Legion was mostly I thought if the kidnappers were part of the only credible threat to the Star Knights, then my teachers would have told me in my briefing, and you know the whole bad memory, plus no flashback when I looked at their symbol. The Chaos Legion is the biggest open threat to the Star Knights. They can't fight us out in the open and usually years go between attacks, but they have brought down a worrying number of Star Knights over the years, usually with carefully planned ambushes. Of course, if they succeed, the Star Knights' response is usually very over the top, so most cells only get one kill before they are wiped out. But in an empire as large as ours there are always plenty of disposable crazies to be found. But wait, if you are the daughter of an old Star Knight, why did they only send me in alone to get you out of there? You should still be under the shield of the Knights, I ask, tilting my head and looking at Jade. I'm not sure, Jade responds by walking over, pulling down and sitting in the Blade's jump seat. Wait, how far into the organization did you manage to work yourself? I say with a sinking feeling in my gut. Well, I had gotten in enough that the cell I was infiltrating let me attend their meetings, but no one but the cell members knew that, Jade responded. Yeah, I wouldn't count on that, I say, rubbing my chin. I think the Knights in your company believed that you had joined the Chaos Legion, and since the Legion's stated goal is the destruction of the Star Knights and their rule, that would break your protection from the Knights, since if you did join the Legion for real then you would be a traitor. What? No, Jade shouts, jumping up. I was simply infiltrating them to learn what happened to my parents. Since the Knights wouldn't tell me what happened, I was never really one of them. Jade says angrily. Hey, I say, putting my palms up in a placating gesture. I can tell that they were going to just shoot you in the head and leave your corpse, so I believe you, but the other Knights might not. After my calming words, Jade sits back down. I scratch my head and say, you don't happen to have any proof that you weren't, going to join the Chaos Legion, do you? Jade hangs her head and says, no. Well, monkey pants, that's not good. I can only think of one thing that could clear you, and let's just say you don't want that. What are you talking about? Jade asks, looking up hopefully. If they use a scorpion on you, I say, and Jade recoils in horror. Now the scorpion that I'm talking about is not one of the terrifying arachnids from humanity's birth world, but a horrible interrogation machine also known as a brain drainer or a number of equally terrifying names. It works by drilling a spike into the head of a person and downloading through the use of powerful shocks the contents of the person's brain. It was another wonderful gift from Dr. Einstein Wiley West, and it worked great for getting information out of people's heads. The downsides are that it tends to have a few negative side effects such as memory loss, loss of motor control, and persistent vegetative states and/or death. They would do that to me? Jade asks, wide-eyed. Well, if they believed that you are a member of the Chaos Legion, then they might want to, and they would use your membership in the Legion to get around your Shield of the Knights. But no worries, my fair damsel in distress, I won't let them. I say, entangling myself from my implant cables and tubes. I'm a jumper knight, I say, standing, flexing and continuing in a boasting tone, so they can't get to you unless I let them. You're just an awakened, how do you plan on that? Jade says questioningly. You still have your combat sleep override chip, so all they have to do is cut off your implants and we will be sitting ducks. Darn, and I was trying to sound so cool I forgot she was the daughter of a knight, so she probably knows all kinds of stuff about the Star Knights. The combat sleep override chip is a chip that is placed inside the necks of new Star Knights that is a fail-safe. This chip that lets another Star Knight with the correct codes block the new knight from entering combat sleep, thereby stopping them from being able to pilot a Starblade if, for example, the new knight has a psychotic break, goes nuts, or is tricked by an enemy, that last one being something which happens way too often. These override chips get removed when a new knight attains the rank Journeyman Knight, which happens as soon as they can be trusted to handle missions by themselves. But turns out, being paranoid and sucking up to several blade mechanics is paying off for me. I turn a big smile on Jade. Well, in most cases that would be true, I say, but I settle back in my chair and hit a few buttons and a panel pops out from the wall and swivels in front of my chair, displaying some outdated manual controls. My blade, the Blue Duchess, might be old, I say, patting my blade's control chair, but that means she still has the old backup controls and I know the old manual overrides, so while I won't be able to enter combat sleep, I can still fly her and still rift jump. It will be harder since I'll have to do the lifting of a rift jump without the blade's help, but like I said, I'm a jumper knight and the blade's shields will still be at full power, so I can outrun anyone they are likely to send after me, and when they try to talk me in, I'll simply make a condition of my returning is that a journeyman reapplies your Shield of the Knights. I say boastfully. Jade blinks and stares at me for a minute before she shakes her head and says, You would do that for me, why? You don't know anything about me? Well, I say in my head, if I can get you to make me a blade-sized rift cutter, then this will be more than worth it. Plus, even if you're a Chaos Legion member, you won't be the first girl seduced back to the light side by a sexy stud like myself. Out loud I say, well, you're the first person I've rescued and you're the daughter of a Star Knight, and while I might catch some backlash from this, it won't be anything I can't handle. It's not like there are enough Star Knights around that they could kill me over this, and they can't take away my Star Knight abilities. Plus my trainers are always going on how I need to do the right thing even if it's hard, painful, or will get me killed. Figuring that I have distracted Jade enough that I can go back to using the Volpe's family system on her, I look down to collect my thoughts and am distracted by seeing my rift cutter where it had fallen on the floor. The rift cutter is still extended in the scythe form, but the lower portion is missing, melted off by a plasma bolt that one of the Chaos Legion men must have fired at me right before I jumped back to my blade with Jade. Chicken dancers, I say, picking the remains of my rift cutter and turning it over in my hands. What's that? Jade says, coming over and looking at the remains. It's my rift cutter, my first real rift cutter, I say, holding it up sadly. I'm about to see if I can turn it on when I think better of it not wanting it to explode or something worse. Think you could fix it? I say, looking at Jade. Probably if I had all my tools back at my dad's lab, Jade answers, reaching out and taking the damaged rift cutter from me. Cool, I say, I can use that as an excuse for extending a Shield of the Star Knights to you, even though it wouldn't be official till I become a journeyman, but it would still apply to me till then, so they would have to choose between me or trying to come after you. Now the Shield of the Star Knights I'm talking about is not a physical one but rather a political one. Since Star Knight tends to make a lot of enemies, both the shooty kind and the political kind, they need a way to protect their friends, families, and other people for various reasons. The shield is essentially a promise that should a person or group attempt to harm, imprison, or kill someone under a knight's shield, all Star Knights in the known universe are obligated to wipe out the offenders as soon as they can, and only the original giver of the oath can release the other knights from their obligation of killing the offenders. So unless the one under the shield breaks one of the provisions of the shield, such as betraying the Star Knights, it gives a measure of protection to those under the shield. Also, a shield can only be broken after it is given, so anyone under a new shield can't be prosecuted for an old offense, only new ones. The Shield of the Star Knights was originally brought into being when some of the old governments that were resisting the Star Knights' rule tried to go after the Star Knight friends and families for breaking some local law. Now, as only an awakened rank knight, other Star Knights wouldn't be obligated to enforce the shield until I become a journeyman knight and reaffirm my given shields, but since the Star Knights are heroes first, protectors of humanity second, and pass off the actual governing of the worlds to the various governments of the different planets. They can stick to their morals rather than having to be politicians. Star Knights are also all honorable principled men or women to some degree and will back each other up under most cases. So I wasn't too worried that they wouldn't honor the shield that I extended to Jade, but since I was trying to put the moves on her, she didn't need to know this because every little bit helps. So with this in mind, I step close to Jade, take one of her hands, and say, I should probably give you the oath to give you the shield of the knights sooner rather than later. Jade looks up at me and her breath catches, probably because I'm still in only my shorts, and hey, I'm not a bad looking guy since I get most of my meals from my food tube, an implant which delivers nutrients directly to my body without having to use my digestive tract. That is how I get most of my meals, and it does wonders at keeping me fit. I take a breath and say in a formal tone, I, Ice Wolf, awakened Knight of the Stars, do offer you the protection and shield of myself and my order as long as you don't knowingly betray us, give comfort or aid to our enemies, or endanger the future of humanity. Jade smiles back at me and says, I, Jade Stone Blood, accept your shield and promises to help you to the full extent of my power. We are standing so close and my heart is hammering, and I think to myself, this is it, and start going in for the kiss, and I see Jade's eyes widen in recognition and delight, and she starts to move towards me when my comm unit lets out a loud chime and switches on. Unholy monkey molesting beard biters.